Hello, my dear friends. So I wanted to share with you the 5 mistakes that people make when going on a journey to release anxiety and realize the thing that their heart desires the most and bring that into their life. So the first thing is, and I have my little notebook here for my girl, Nicole, don't go anywhere without it. The first thing is thinking that you can't, right? Because as people with an overactive mind who think of every possible scenario and have a mind that naturally wants to protect themselves, the first thing that you go to is why you can't, why it's not going to work, why it's going to fail, what happens if you fail, how your life is going to be over when you fail, right? And you know, that not only prevents you from taking that next step, which is the step that you need to take in order for the universe to support you and for it to snowball in a positive direction, but it really makes you feel like shit, right? Because when you believe that, then you don't do it, and then this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and then you know, like, live with that emptiness because you don't have that thing in your life, and you start to believe that you can't do things. Whereas if you saw that belief for what it is, let it be there, did it anyways, pushed through it, and then did that thing, then you would stop thinking that you can't do things. But it's kind of like a chicken and an egg, right? Because it only happens from pushing out of that I can't do it and doing it, and then realizing I can do it. And trust me, every single person you see who's super successful, every new thing that they do, that I can't do it feeling comes up first. So that's the first mistake. The second mistake is sort of just like trying to figure it out casually, right? Like, oh, I want to do this thing, I have some blocks, and somehow I'll figure it out, right? Because you're really trying to push past habits. Habits are super intense and powerful and ingrained from like 20, 30, 40 years of being this way, right? And so many things come up like that want to keep you in your comfort zone. So even when an opportunity arises, you might have fear about stepping up for that, or you know, when you have some ideas and you have a sense of what you want to do, you might procrastinate by watching 7 series of something on Netflix. That's my go-to procrastination, because that seems really urgent. And so it's really important to not just assume that you'll figure it out, but to find a system that's holding you accountable and giving you the most efficient process possible, and taking into consideration the way that you uniquely are and the kind of blocks that you will have along this way, so that you set yourself up to make it happen for sure. And at the end of this, I'm going to share with you something that can support you with doing that. The third thing is, see, I wrote this in really bad handwriting. Trying to solve the problem alone. Sometimes we're a little bit shy, to be honest, about that thing that we really want, right? You know, we don't want to tell people because we don't want to get our hopes up, or maybe people will judge us. It feels vulnerable, but in order for it to happen, you have to move past that shyness. And I have a program called Limitless. It's coming out soon. It's brand new. And I have some people who've been applying, who I sort of sent it to as an early invitation. And one of the questions in the application is, you know, what's the thing that your heart desires most? And someone wrote something, and they said, wow, that's the first time I've actually seen it on paper, and it was an amazing dream. And it was such an important reminder to me that sometimes we think things in our head, right? We think them by ourselves, but we're not putting them out there. And, you know, I'm not going to ask you to, like, you know, like email blast, like, everyone and tell them, right? Like, it's just baby steps, but it is really important to really put it out there, and with a group of people who are in a similar journey and can support you in that way, so that you're not really trying to solve that problem alone. Because if you don't do that, then the thing is there, and then you just get in your head about it, and then you tell yourself why you can't do it, and you make excuses, and then that becomes a reality, and then it doesn't happen, right? So I think really just finding a support system is really, really, really critical. The fourth thing is using ineffective solutions, right? So the reason that I got into anxiety is because I had anxiety since I was a child, and I saw maybe like 15 doctors. I've done everything. And everything in the medical world just wasn't really doing it for me. It wasn't really moving the needle. And I knew that I didn't want to give up on myself and I didn't want to live like this. And so I spent, 20 years, well, building a career as a CMO for a publicly traded company, researching everything, like all the metadata, all the, like meta-analysis of the modern findings of science, as well as like all like old spiritual traditions, every single thing that was working. And I really found a solution that really works for me. And a couple of years ago, with lots of self-doubt and going through all of these things we're talking about, I created a program called Anxiety from Anxiety for people. And I had a bunch of limiting beliefs that I had to get past, and I put it out there, and it phenomenally changed people's lives. People who had been going to doctors for years, people who had tried everything, including medication. And I don't have that doubt anymore. But the point is, like, one, it's really impossible to release that doubt in your mind, right? It comes from the action of doing it that helps you to build up the confidence for the next thing, but also like finding a solution that really works for you. And that was a bit of a long train of thought to say that I think breathing techniques are super important. Lots of things that you can do in the moment are super important. Incredibly important tools that I teach myself, different kinds of breathing techniques, different kinds of meditations, different kinds of emergency tools. But the most important thing is getting to the root of what's causing your anxiety, right? And dealing with that so that you're not living in a place of constantly having to bring the anxiety down, but you're living in a place that naturally feels calm. And I think this is something that people are like, yeah, right, can that happen? And I invite you to look at the testimonials from my clients who also thought that, but decided to try it and are like, holy shit. Like, it's an awesome place. So I think it's really about finding the solutions that are getting to the root cause of the problem and the things that are really, really effective. And that goes for anxiety, but also it goes for really trying to bring the things that you want into your life. Like, different people have different methods for things, and different methods speak to different people. And it's important to find a thing that speaks to you and the challenge that you're having. And, maybe what I'm creating is not necessarily for you, but it's really for people who have active minds, who have a lot of limiting beliefs that hold themselves back, and it's specifically for those people. So the fifth thing is not putting yourself first, right? Not putting the stream first. And that comes from lots of different reasons. That comes from feeling like it's selfish to want what you want. And it's not, because if it's something that your heart deeply desires, you will be a happier person, which means that you will be able to give more to people and help more people. So it's actually very selfless to want what you want for yourself. And that also comes from just a fear of having it, right? Like, what will that mean for you? Sometimes, a lot of people say there's a fear of success. What will that mean? How will it change your life? And it can come from a fear of not getting it, of hoping for it and not getting it. There's many different things that people do to not put themselves first. It can come from just feeling completely overwhelmed with lots of things going on and just dealing with what's most urgent versus what is most important. And what will move the needle the most, right? Lots of people are asking us to do things. We have lots of little responsibilities. But at the end of our life, when we're 90, we're going to look back and be happy that we did that thing, or we're going to be happy that we did this thing that like our heart is calling us to do. So those are 5 of the biggest mistakes that people make when trying to really release anxiety for good, to manifest their heart's deepest desire. And I'm going to be sharing my 3-part framework for how high achievers release anxiety for good and gain their deepest desires in their life. And I really created this because I know when you start a journey like this, it's pretty daunting, right? Where do you start? That happened to me for the last 20, 30 years. And I found it really effective with my clients to put together a step-by-step system that builds on each other, really simplifies it, give them all the support that they need to do that. And I am sharing all of that with you in a VIP live private training for the people who apply to the program and who are accepted. And so applying to the program, there's absolutely no obligation to join. But definitely apply to the program if you do want to be a part of that live private training, where I am sharing that 3-part process. I'm going to be sharing a lot of other really juicy stuff, like the biggest myths about releasing anxiety, the biggest myths about how you can change, the biggest myths about manifestation, which I think is one of my favorites. So there will be a link in my bio, or you can always just hit me up with any questions, and I'm happy to share that with you as well. And let me know which one of these resonated with you the most and what you want to do next to take an action. Because, my whole thing is action is where the magic happens. Lots of love.